Earth's oldest seafaring. Lurking at the bottom of the ocean, the giant squid has been glimpsed only occasionally by man. But those few times have been enough to fuel hundreds of years of stories. In 1861, the French gunboat Alecton encountered a giant squid while en route from Spain to the Canary Islands. At first, the crew fired their cannon at the beast. This had little or no effect on it. Then they attempted to harpoon it. Finally, they got a rope around the monster and began pulling it aboard. But the squid struggled, and it was feared it would capsize the ship. It was released. Mariners still speak of sea monsters, both large and small, that prey on those that venture too far from land. Near the turn of the century, two men found a huge, half-buried carcass of a giant creature on a Florida beach. The body was 23 feet in length. The arms measured 32 feet. At first, the body was identified as that of a giant squid. Later, this was changed to Octopus, although one of this size had never been reported. Finally, the verdict of whale was rendered. But years later, the tissues were again analyzed and determined to be from an unknown species of octopus.
According to the original measurements, the animal measured, if the tentacles were stretched out. The octopus doesn't have that extra two long ones that the squid does, so they're all more similar in length. Was between 150 and 200 feet from tentacle tip to tentacle tip. The carcass itself weighed more than a ton.
But the oceans hold more than just oversized octopus and squid. There have been repeated, verified sightings of the strange creatures sailors call sea serpents. At 5 p.m. on the 6th of August, 1848, HMS Daedalus is sailing from the East Indies to Plymouth, England, when its course crosses that of a most unusual creature. The captain, two other officers, and a midshipman are walking the quarterdeck when they see an enormous, undulating, snake-like thing.
It kept its head and shoulders about 4 feet above the surface of the sea.
As nearly as the men can judge, the serpent's visible length is about 60 feet, and there seems to be some kind of mane down its neck. Maintaining its course, the creature passes the Daedalus rapidly, but so close that,
as it passed under our lee quarter, that had it been a man of my acquaintance, I should have easily recognized his features with the naked eye.
In his statement to the British Admiralty, Captain McQuaid's observations are confirmed by over 30 crew members of the Daedalus. During World War I, the following report went into the logbook of the German submarine U-28.
Torpedoed the British steamer Iberian, loaded with valuable goods. The ship sank rapidly, then exploded 25 seconds after slipping beneath the waves. Shortly afterwards, pieces of wreckage, among them a huge marine animal, which made violent movements, were thrown out of the water.
Captain Freiherr von Forstner described the animal as about 20 meters long, with 4 paddle-like limbs and a head like a crocodile.
Still thrashing violently, it sank from sight after only 10 seconds on the surface.
While sighting a sea serpent may be a time-honored nautical tradition, there is good reason to believe that ancient creatures, thought long extinct, still survive. In the 1930s, a Danish research ship pulled from the depths an eel larva that was over 6 feet in length. Known species of eel produce larvae only about 3 inches long, so the Danish find could have reasonably grown to over 100 feet. Just months later, the coelacanth, a prehistoric-looking fish that has survived unchanged for millions of years, was pulled alive from the depths of the Pacific. And in 1976, megamouth, a previously unknown variety of shark, was caught still swimming millions of years past its prime. If these creatures have survived, what other ancient wonders still lurk in the deep? Beneath the picture-perfect waters of Scotland's Loch Ness swims the most famous sea serpent in the world. Or does it? The Loch Ness Monster, Nessie to her fans, has captivated the public's interest and affection in a way that few other creatures, real or imagined, ever will. Although the most famous photograph of Nessie has been acknowledged a fake, this has had little effect on the legions of believers. The monster has been sketched, filmed, photographed, painted, captured, it seems, by every medium except the net.
They've gone down there with submarines, and they can't find the thing. It can't be just Nessie, our beloved monster, living all by herself there for, tens and hundreds of years. You have to have a breeding population. There would need to be, even the pro cryptozoologists say there would need to at least be 15 or 20 of them at minimum to keep the breeding population going. And we don't have one body.
But the monster does exist, claims researcher Dr. Roy Mackel. He has pursued Nessie since the 60s, and for him, all the evidence points to one inescapable conclusion.
The identification and the nature of all the animals in the North Temperate Lakes, particularly in Loch Ness and Loch Morar and so on, are animals, long snake-like whales that reach lengths of 55 to 60 feet for adults, the smaller ones being anything from a few feet long, which come into fresh water from time to time from the sea. They find a happy home for maybe one season, sometimes more than one season, especially if the lake is large and has a large food supply and they're not being disturbed. And eventually they may go out to the sea again. And occasionally they're observed as sea serpents.
The elusive monster of Loch Ness continues to fascinate us. In the winter of 1997, searchers announced that they had found an underwater cave that might be the monster's lair. But for now, Nessie, like many other monsters,